All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 87 of the Muskies on Tap podcast. I am your host, one of your hosts, Gus Manty, and we got a nice special for you here dropping. It's with Chase Gibson, Gibson's Guide Service, kind of more of a nomadic fisherman. He bounces all over the United States, mainly West Virginia and Minnesota, but he gets to a few other states, and we have a lot of discussion about southern reservoirs and whatnot, and Minnesota and travel stories, tournaments. Yeah, we had a great chat. So without further ado, let's introduce the other MOP members on here tonight. We got none other than my brother Max. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. That was an awesome interview with Chase. Yeah, like you said, we covered a bunch of different topics, probably dove deeper into the live scope discussion than we have in the past, which was kind of fun to do. But yeah, just a all around musky nut, which we love to see. Just one of those guys that clearly has an addiction and a passion for the sport, which is so great. A lot of accolades at such a young age, and cool to see what he's been able to build for his own business, and able to kind of get that TV show going with Mayhem's 10,000 Cast with Brad Hoppe. Really informative. I love tuning into it every week. So pleasure to get him on. But yeah, let's introduce our third co-host here of the evening. It's none other than my best buddy, Brian Eckel. Brian, how we doing this evening?
Doing great, doing great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that interview. Kind of envious of him for being able to just travel
Yeah,
around the conch, just drop in, chase a bite.
I
Um,
love it. I love it.
fishing big ass trees in the water in West Virginia. I mean, come on, I gotta try that at some point.
Going from
Mm,
that to Leech Lake, like I mean,
Yeah,
just talk
I mean,
about
give it a
diversifying
break.
your
Yes,
Rolodex of musky
save some
knowledge. It's great.
muskies for the rest of us.
seriously.
But yeah, I'm actually, when we get off tonight, I'm gonna hop on to his YouTube channel, Mayhem's 10,000 Casts, catch back up on some of those videos. I did watch the other night Kyle Friedge's Beyond the Eight latest video, which was another banger he put out. Um, he's so skilled with his editing. We need to figure out a way to hire him, film for a weekend with him, finally get a YouTube video on our channel, but maybe that's a dream for another day.
Gus
Yeah,
taking some heat
seriously.
tonight.
I am taking absolute heat, and that's all right. I'll
That's all
take
right.
it.
It's all right. It's all right.
I'll
I,
take
I know
it.
I know you've been busy this winter. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. He took
No,
over merch god role, so he's got merch for
Yeah,
me.
not a
that's right.
light
That
task.
was handed over after you had it for two
But
years or so, man.
graciously
Yeah,
passed down for me.
that's
You're
crazy.
still you're still like the manager, like you're
I'm like
overseeing the
V. Yeah, I'm
operation.
the V. Yeah.
Right, you're the V. But all right, we'll catch you guys on the other side of this interview. Enjoy Chase Gibson.
All right, here on the end of the line, we got with us Chase Gibson of Gibson's Guide Service and one of the hosts of Mayhem's 10,000 Casts on YouTube. So, Chase, how you doing tonight? Pleasure having you on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. How are you guys doing?
Pretty
Great.
solid.
No complaints.
Like,
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's new. You usually don't get asked that.
Hey, well, now that you actually mentioned it, I got a few things to get off my chest.
Yeah,
oh,
I've been waiting to talk all night.
And that's where I'll stop you.
good. Yeah, no, we're not talking about the worries and whatnot. We're gonna talk about muskies. That's the main worry we got going. But Chase, you're gonna be at Chicago show this weekend, and I'm actually going to be as well, which I haven't said too much. I think only like once on the podcast and whatnot. But what booth are you gonna be in?
I will be bouncing around between Muskie Mayhem Tackle, Muskie Bumper, and probably Team Rhino Outdoors booth. All three.
Nice.
I kind of
Awesome.
wander. I'm a wanderer at the show. That's why when I had Muskie Bumper, I didn't do so good at the shows because I never stayed in my booth. But I like walking around talking to all the guys that I've know a lot of guys from the South all the way up to Minnesota, so I've got a checklist almost of who I want to go talk to that I haven't talked to in a month or so. So I walk around a lot, but I'll be in Musky Mayhem probably the majority of the time. Musky Bumper a little bit, and like I said, Team Rhino.
So I'm throw you a little curveball here to start out the night. You guys did a little bit of filming last year in Wisconsin. Curious to ask, was that the first time you were in our neck of the woods fishing? And if so, what were your thoughts?
I'm assuming you're meaning from the show from last season, right?
Yeah, so I guess it would have been what, 2 years
Two
ago
years
then?
ago.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm clarifying is the episode coming out this weekend is also from Wisconsin.
Oh,
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yes, that was the first time I was ever in Wisconsin. That was in an area that Brad had fished like 20 some years ago. Or well, on one of the lakes, I believe. Um, we did good. I mean, I liked Wisconsin. I'll be honest, I didn't like as much as Minnesota, but I did. I liked the scenery of it and how the lakes set up. Another thing that I really liked about Wisconsin is you guys had cribs, which I kind of mess with cribs down south, so it's kind of cool to have the northern stuff and then also have that crib to play with. Um, and the cribs definitely held fish, which I assumed they would. I'd love to have some cribs up here in Minnesota just to see how these fish would hang to them because there's nothing up here other than weeds, rocks, and sand. So, but no, I
That's
had
pretty
a
sweet.
lot of fun there in Wisconsin last year. This year was really good. It's kind of hot. It's during that super hot spell. I think in like is June or July. I don't know. Remember what month it was, but I ended up getting my PB Tiger, and about
nice.
10 minutes before or 10 minutes after that, I can't remember. I got my PB Wisconsin fish at a 48 and a half, really big, thick brown one. So
Damn.
we had a
Damn.
very, very good day. It was
Like a
awesome.
good little teaser here, excuse me, for people to tune in for this weekend.
Yeah, and if you're from Wisconsin or really anywhere, you probably want to check that out. Just it was
Hmm.
really cool. We struggled through the day. It was super hot. Like I said, we got one. We actually went and tried to do some more so water stuff just because the lake that we were fishing was supposed to have a bunch of Cisco's in it. We did not find any Cisco's, so we found out that we seen a really deep weed edge. So we went straight to the weed edge and just started fishing, and found a pile of fish kind of midday, and then went back on them at dark, and they just snapped like crazy for probably an hour.
Nice. So,
Dang.
what's it been like filming? I mean, did you do like YouTube content and stuff prior? Forgive me for not knowing, but
No.
was Mayhem's kind of like your first go at like this whole putting together a show? I mean, I could imagine a lot that goes into something like that.
Yeah. Pre Mayhem 10,000 cast, I'd make fun of YouTubers to be completely honest. Um, I never imagined I would do it. I just thought, man, those guys are stupid, showing everybody what they're doing all the time and everything. And I always thought, man, I really should do it as much as I fish. It'd probably be pretty good. But I never would do it. And Brad invited me up to Minnesota. And I catch a fish. First fish I catch in Minnesota is actually wasn't even a muskie, it was a walleye. First like 3 days I fished in Minnesota, I caught pike, walleye, and largemouth. Never seen a muskie. I was like, oh, Minnesota sucks. Um, but what happened was I pulled this like 26, 27-inch walleye, whatever it was, out of the net. Turned around and Brad had a big camera in my face. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He's all just talk to the camera. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, say who you are, what you're doing. Not obviously just shell shocked. I didn't know what to say. Um, and then after that, he kind of started explaining that he's wanting to do a TV show and blah blah blah. And at that time, I had no idea that I was going to be a part of it, and he didn't either at the time. Um, but we just became really good buddies and learned a lot from each other. And that fall, he kind of said, "Well, do you want to do this thing with me?" And I'm like, I don't know. Probably. Yeah, I guess so. So we've kind of done it since. But I won't say that I know how to do all the editing and stuff because I haven't edited any of that crap. Brad does all the editing. Um, I don't really want to do the editing. So he's been kind of doing the editing last couple of years. I'm probably going to start doing very rough, raw content. That's what I kind of want to do right now. I don't really want to do that B-roll crap. I like fishing way too much to sit there and do
Right.
cameras. Brad really gets annoyed with me because just say we're fishing and all of a sudden we just start catching them. Well, on the TV show, you can't just have, well, we would like it, but we got a lot of feedback from the first year that people want more talking points, more B-roll. They're saying it's unrealistic for us to catch 5 fish in an episode. And I'm like, how is it unrealistic? We're catching these fish, and these are traditional fishing. This isn't just scoping. I mean, yeah, we've used the scope in some of the episodes, but we've had 5 fish episodes where we're not scoping, and and people are saying it's unrealistic. So what we struggle with now is we start catching fish, and I get in my zone, and I don't want to quit and have to talk to this freaking camera. And really, Brad doesn't either, but he is smart enough to he'll drop the rod, get the camera, and come back there and do like, all right, tell me what's going on, and I spew off a bunch of crap, and I go right back into fishing. That's my biggest struggle with the whole filming thing, and then having to deal with the cameras. You know, they overheat. I mean, all that crap, which I'm sure you guys know well.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into the camera work and stuff. And last year at the Minnesota show, I think was the first time I met Brad and or maybe it was Milwaukee, but I talked to him more at Minnesota show and we were out talking about all the filming stuff like that and ideas and whatnot. And we definitely hope to have Brad on the podcast here at some point. But more, I know we're like jumping all around here, but how did I'm not trying to go like way, way back, but how did your relationship with like the Hoppies start? I probably knew it maybe from Backlash if you said it, but did
Yeah.
you because you just used Mayhem's products or did you meet him at the shows or how'd
No.
that go?
Um, so I got into, obviously I got into fishing, blah, blah. But my first 50 ever back home was on a cowgirl. And kind of honestly, like in West Virginia, especially back then, you didn't hear of any other bucktail. No one was throwing anything other than Mayhem. That's just what it was. That's what was available to us because we don't have a musky shop. We don't have a Thorn Brothers. We don't have anything. So everything is either like Dick's Sporting Goods, Cabela's, or online. So 90% of what everyone's using down there, still to this day, is Mayhem. Um, and there's really no reason to change, in my opinion. But anyways, the detonator came out, and on the lake that I specifically stay on and guide on mainly, that it's got a lot of really big fish in it. And every year, there's always 1 to 2 50s caught. This is back then. In May or June on either double black nickel double tens or a supermodel, usually double ten. Well, Brad came out with the detonator, and I had no idea who Brad was. Had absolutely not a clue who he was. And so I bought the detonator, and I thought, man, that thing's going to be dynamite next May. Next May rolls around. I'm guiding. I actually have a weekend cancellation. The guy canceled on me because it's supposed to rain. Well, it had been real hot, and the weekend was like it was like 50 degrees. The air temp was blowing like 20 mile an hour and just pouring rain down. Horrible weather. And usually that cold front in May really shuts things down. Well, this time it fired them up, and it was me and my buddy. Um, we got 13 fish in 2 days. I got a 52 and a quarter, a 52, and a 50 and a half, all on a detonator. Every fish we caught was on a detonator, all boat side. It was like they've never even seen a bucktail in their life. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing is insane. And so I texted Greg Thomas and I said, hey, Greg, how do I get a hold of Musky Mayhem? Because I was starting to guide and I was looking to get on pro staff, so to speak, which is silly now that I think about it now. Get on pro staff, get on, just, get your name out there, right? So Greg got me in contact with Brad. Brad decided to have me on the podcast. We had the podcast, hung up the phone on the podcast. Brad calls me back. And this is in like July. And it was like, I think when I got off the phone with him, it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, my time. And we just sat there and just talked for like 2 or 3 hours. And basically, to sum it up, he just said, well, what are you doing right now? I'm like, well, the water temp's too hot. I'm not fishing. I've been bass fishing, wanting to shoot myself. And he's like, well, why don't you just come up here? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm thinking, what the hell? What's with this guy? Who is this dude? That's weird. And he'll
What the
tell you the
hell?
story. He'll tell you the story. It's pretty funny. Back then I was, I don't know, 17, 18 years old, whatever it was. And I said, well, I'm like, are you being serious? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I have to ask my mom. And Brad had absolutely no idea how old I was. He thought I was like 30. So So when I said that, it really threw him off, and he still tells everybody that to this day. He's like, God, I had no idea what I just did, inviting a 30-year-old man that asked his mom for permission to come here. But basically, I just booked a plane ticket, flew to Minneapolis. Carrie picked me up. I met Carrie. She drove me to their house, and then she said, "Well, Brad's out fishing right now. I'll drive you to the lake if you want to go fishing tonight, or you can just hang out here." And I'm like, "Well, of course I want to go fishing tonight." So we drive home from the airport. She takes me straight over the lake. Brad was guiding at the time, actually. And I jumped in the boat with them, and I just sat in the back of the boat and just kind of sat there. I'm like, dude, I don't need to fish. He's like, oh, you can fish. But his client ended up catching like a 48 and a half or something that night. And I'm like, wow, this place is absolutely a different planet compared to what I'm from. I mean, the water's clear. The lakes look different. And this is how little I knew about Minnesota. I thought Minnesota would look like Lake of the Woods, like Shield Rock, no houses, nothing. You're out in the middle of nowhere, like a moose is going to walk out at any second.
Sure.
And then I get up there, and there's houses every 10 feet on most of the shorelines that we're on. I'm like, what? There's 55-inch fish in a place like this where there's freaking people swimming around everywhere? And he's like, yeah. And it was pretty funny. I mean, we go to a new lake, and I'd be like, well, have you caught what's the biggest one you caught out of this lake? He's like, oh, we got like a 54. Oh, 55. I've heard of a 57 out of this one. I'm like, what the hell? This place is insane. So super shell shocking compared to what I was used to.
How long into your guiding business were you at the time when you went up to Minnesota?
That would have been I think it was actually my first year. Yeah, I started in March that year. Started in March that year, caught now it's the X state record in April. And then I was in Minnesota in August. I quit guiding in, I think, first week of June. Water temps got hot. And then July, Brad called me. August, I was in Minnesota. September, I was back in West Virginia and guided the rest of the year.
That's
pretty funny.
Crazy ass story, man.
Yeah. Pretty nuts.
That's nuts how things work out. Like,
oh, yeah.
Just in general. I mean, what a leap of faith.
Yeah. And I had on the Musky Hunks podcast, I did one with them, and we got a little bit more in depth into it. And he asked a cool question. He's like, well, how would you say you're so successful at such a young age in the musky industry? And I'm like, because I don't have kids, I didn't have a house payment. I could take every opportunity that came my way. I was like, could risk everything because I didn't have anything. That's exactly what that story's from. I mean, I literally was on the phone with him, had a talk with a guy I've never met before, 17 and a half hours away from my house. Got on an airplane the next day, flew up there and stayed with him for 3 or 4 months.
You never went back.
Wild.
You never went back. You got up there and you're like, we're doing it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I was there. I mean, if he was a serial killer, then I was screwed. I mean, there's nothing else to do.
It is what it is.
Natural selection, I guess.
Yeah. That's insane. So did you know when you took that flight you were going to stay there for a month, or were you going for like a long weekend originally?
Like, do you have to go to like Kohl's or something and start buying some shit?
Yeah.
Or like,
I mean, what?
No, that's well, what it was is I had some buddies that were fishing with Greg in Minnesota in the beginning of September. So Brad's like, well, they're coming up already. Why don't you just come up and then fly home with them? Yeah, I could actually. That doesn't sound bad. So that's really what it developed from, was me going up there and then just staying with Brad that time. But no, I mean, and I told Brad straight on the phone when he asked me to come up, I'm like, well, dude, I can't afford that. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I can't afford to come up there and pay for a place and food for a month and a half. I mean, I can't do that. And he's like, oh no. He said, you just pay the plane ticket. Well, you can stay at the house. We'll feed you. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? What does he want?
Too good to be true. Red flag.
Well, the people that know Brad and Carrie Hoppe, they all say the same thing. Those two are some of the best people in this entire industry. And I ain't just saying that, but I'm telling you right now.
If that story doesn't tell you, what would.
Exactly.
I mean,
and it ain't just me. I mean, there's a lot of stuff from back in the day pretty much, I'm not going to say I know for a fact, but pretty much most established musky guides in Minnesota at some point was staying at Brad and Carrie's house. Majority of them. For some length of period of time. And that's just how it was. They all did. I mean, tons of guys. Which is really awesome. I mean, there's a lot of history in that house, which is funny because it's their house, but there's a lot of musky history there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one thing that I mean, crazy story, awesome story. But one thing that we kind of glossed over through that story was like a state record that just kind of got buried in that story somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure you've told the story a million times. I'd love to hear it firsthand. I mean, what kind of went into that? I mean, how did it go down? Did you know it was a state record when you caught it? Um, we always like hearing about big fish stories, particularly. I mean, I don't think we've actually had a state record story on the podcast before. So,
Yeah. Um, so I was guiding on my home lake Stonewall, which has a lot more numbers and has a very, very good number, 50 incher. Still does till today, whatever I'm trying to say. But there was another lake just south of me, that was a smaller lake, but the population is a very, very low density. And like the biggest muskies at the time that I ever heard of in West Virginia was like a 52s, 53s, kind of, more like 53s, 53, 53 and a half, you know. And they were in that lake. And I had only fished it maybe 4 or 5 times. And I hadn't fished it in 4 or 5 years previous to this day. Well, I had a day off from guiding, and I was like, I don't really want to go to Stonewall. I've been out there for a month. I'm like, I'll call my buddy. So I called my buddy, and I said, hey, you want to go down there and take a chance? I said, we might not catch nothing, but there's some huge fish in there. And he's like, yeah, sure. So we run down there. I put the boat in gear, run up to a spot I never fished before in my day in my life, and started fishing. I was throwing a glide bait because it's late April. In late April, a lot of our fish are coming off spawn, especially our big fish. And I was throwing a glider on a pre-spawn or a kind of a post-spawn bank, kind of coming out of a pocket. And I noticed all the bait on the hummingbird was like 12 foot deep because we kind of had a cold front that morning. So I immediately took that glider off and put a dying dog on with a weight. Started throwing it in the timber. I don't know, I made probably 6, 7 casts. Felt like the thump of a freaking lifetime. Set the hook, fish comes up, head shaking on the surface. I realize it's big. And at this point, I had probably caught, I don't know, 3, 4, 50 inches, maybe something like that. So I mean I'm not like super dialed in on saying, oh, that's a 50 incher, which to this day I still don't do that. But anyways, I knew it was a big fish. And this is like some really thick timber, and I'm having to steer right through. And my buddy's there with the net, and I just literally pull on her as hard as I absolutely can because I know if she takes any kind of drag, anything like that, that fish is wrapped up in the trees. I mean, the trees in the you guys have been to Cave Run and the PMCT. Our trees are like 5 times as thick as those trees at Cave.
couldn't
Jesus.
even imagine.
Yeah, they're very, very thick. Um, so I just pulled on her as hard as I possibly could, got her in the net. My buddy looks at me and goes, dude, that's a 55. And I said, you're crazy as hell. You don't even know what a 55 looks like. Because his biggest fish at that time was like a 50 inch or something. I mean, no one in the South's ever seen a 55. I mean, maybe Melton Hill once. But other than that, no one south of St. Clair's ever seen a 55 that I know about or ever heard of. And so I'm like, wow, he's batshit crazy. That thing ain't 55 inches. How would he know? So we get her in the net, I unhook her, let her sit there for a minute, and I get the bump board out and get everything ready for pictures because I knew it was the biggest fish I ever caught at this point. And I dumped it on the bump, and her tail stretched down and it hit 54 3/4. I'm like, holy shit, this thing is huge.
Buddy's got a good eye.
Yeah, I'm like,
Within
I
a
look
quarter
at
inch.
he cusses like a sailor, which I won't say his exact words, but he basically told me I was a dummy, and that he told me so. You know, I'm like, dude, how would you ever know that? And so we dump her back in the water, and I look at him. He's from PA, and I looked at him. And I said, dude, that's our state record. He goes, really? I'm like, yeah, our state record's 53 and a half. And at the time, I was working with the DNR a little bit, just kind of doing oh shit, population studies is what it was. So they gave me a pit tag reader, and I was scanning. So I talked to DNR a ton, and I called him up and I said, hey dude, I know it's a Saturday, but I've got the state record fish in the net right now. And he goes, are you sure it is? Because I've had this call a lot, and I get down there and it's not. And I said, no, I promise. It's an inch and what would that be? Inch and a quarter longer than the state record, dude. Like it ain't.
Yeah, you
It
cleaned
ain't.
it.
Yeah, it ain't anywhere close to it. He said, well, tell me where you're at. And I told him. He said, well, I'll be there. Just wait on us. I'm like, all right. I had no idea. I mean, am I supposed to wait for 30 minutes? Am I supposed to wait for 4 hours? I have no idea. So we pull over the shore, get in the shade, get that fish in the shade so the sun's not beating on her. Had her in the net, never screwed with. I never touched her again from the time I bumped her to the time the DNR got there, and she was completely lively. I mean, that fish was doing super well. They showed up, did the whole. They clipped her fin for aging. They weighed her. They measured her, and she ended up being 54 and a 16th is what they gave me for a record. That's because the mouth was closed. I never thought about that at that time. So mouth, our record, it has to be mouth closed. So mouth closed, touching the tip of the tail was 54 and
Real
16.
quick, real
Yeah.
quick, not to cut you off, but when they got there and they started measuring it, and they're like, "Oh no, we have to close the mouth." Did your heart skip a little bit of a beat? Like,
Well,
oh shit! Like, is this gonna end up being like 53 and a quarter? Because like that cracked jaw and a pinch tail can do some wonders as a being in
oh yeah,
tournaments. Like,
yeah. Well, I seen that they never said anything about the closed
okay,
jaw. They just
okay,
threw it on there, and when I seen
Hmm.
that tail slide past the 54 and three quarter, I was like, "Oh God, what's going on?" I'm instantly like pissed. Then I realized, okay, it's still state record. It's not as much as what I'd like it to be, but it's still that. And they weighed her. She was 39.8 pounds. She was kind of, she was like half spawned out, is what she was. So what our fish will do a lot in the South is they go through the motions in the lakes. This is they'll go through the motions, but it really is not a very good chance of them actually reproducing. But what you'll get if you get, I mean, our weather in the spring can be flooding. It could be 80 degrees. Our water temp could come up 15 degrees in a day, literally. What that does is when you have those inconsistencies, them fish will pull up and spawn, and maybe you get a cold front, and they'll whack right off. They'll spew half their eggs. They'll come right back off, and then they'll wait for the right day, and they'll go back up and spew the rest of them out. Well, that's what she had done. She had went up there, spawn. Cold front happened. She pulled back off. I caught her a little deeper than what most of the fish were doing at the couple of days before that cold front. And then I get her and I realize that she's kind of half spawned out. So she probably would have had, I don't know, I'd say she'd been 45 plus pounds if she had her full belly weight because she was a brute. Just real skinny old fish, though.
that's
Damn.
awesome.
Was that what was the weight of the previous state record? Or do they go
So
by
we,
length or weight?
so
Or
we have
both?
both. We have a length and we have a weight. Our length that I beat was a 53 and a half. The weight was a 50 incher that's like 49 pounds or something.
Holy shit.
A 60 some year old woman caught it. This is not kidding. This is 100% a fact. 60 some year old woman caught it on a Zebco 303 on a split shot and a half a night crawler. Um, Now the record that beat mine was a 55 and a 16th, and it was pure pre-spawn. I mean, fully pre-spawn fish. So that thing was
Wow.
50 some pounds. He broke my record and the X weight record.
Wow.
That one was a
Unreal.
brute.
Are
Yeah.
those just those fish getting to that potential first, or was that always a thing down there? Or
We
is
have
it just
had
stocking?
no. Our genetics, honestly, like in West Virginia, there's something with our genetics. Our fish just get really big compared to like Ohio. PA pumps out some big fish too, but seems like as far as in the South, if you want to catch 50 inchers, my little area right there is probably the deal. If you're wanting to catch them out of the Southern Reservoir. Our rivers have them. Not going to be. I'm not going to say we have more 50 inches in our rivers than James River or Virginia stuff, but we do have some opportunity for 50s in the river. But our lakes, the one that I guide on all the time, Stonewall, that one has a 52-inch minimum, so that helps a lot. That
Nice.
helps. They put in shad about probably close to 11 to 13 years ago now. The shad have absolutely exploded in the lake, and the fish are just growing extremely fast. Like I've caught a lot of the same fish over repeatedly, and I've actually caught 50 inches repeatedly. There's a 50 incher that my buddy caught in 2021. It was a 52 and a half. I caught that same fish in the same week the next year at 53. The next year after that, I caught it at 53 and a half. So that fish has grown a half inch and it's 53 inches. It's growing a
Jeez.
half inch every year, which is just crazy. And
That's
then
nuts.
this spring, the same exact week, about a mile from where I caught it 2 years ago. So this spring, my buddy Troy catches it, and it's a 53 3/4. So it grew another quarter inch. So they're still growing. I mean, that fish, and if you see pictures of it, it is like the oldest looking. It looks like a dinosaur giant. I mean, and its head's humongous. So that they're just growing very, very well there. For one, your minimum, your size minimum is good. Three, we don't have a crap load of stocking. We used to have pretty good stocking, but now in the last 5 to 10 years, the stockings kind of went downhill. But it's allowing those fish to just gorge themselves up and get a lot bigger. Um, and the lake, what's really cool too, I know I'm really talking a lot right now. I'm trying to explain it fully. The lake that Stonewall is the one I'm guiding on. It's 2,800 acres, which doesn't sound big, but from one end to the other is 23 miles long. It's about it's about 100, probably 150 yards wide at the widest point. So it's like basically a river. So there's tons of acreage for these fish to sit, and then that low stocking, um, they're just out there, and they don't get messed with that often.
We kind of talked about it last week on the podcast, and we were concerned with like the drop in stocking numbers up in northern Wisconsin, how it might be hurting or is going to hurt the fish population. But you kind of make it into a positive with allowing the big fish to keep growing. Do you guys have a lot
Well,
of hatchery production, or I mean, are you worried about stocking in your neck of the woods?
yeah, I mean, stocking in everybody's neck of the woods is sucking right now, unless you live in Ohio or PA. I mean, that's just the facts about it. I mean, Minnesota sucks, Wisconsin sucks, West Virginia sucks. They're all going downhill. We're all getting fish, but it's not what it was. I don't know why that is. I'm not real worried about the stocking, to be completely honest. And here's two reasons why. One reason is they're putting enough fish. If they're putting in some fish in there, that's good enough for me, as long as there's fish in there. It's not. It's not like you go days without seeing muskies. I'm on fish every day. I mean, I may not catch a fish every day, but no one catches a fish every day. I don't care where you are. Um, but I'm catching fish majority of my trips that I'm running, and I'm contacting fish every trip that I'm running. So there's plenty of fish in the lake. But what's really good about it that I like about it, I can't even believe I'm saying this compared to what I would be saying 3 years ago. But what it's doing is there's a lot of guys coming to the lake that are seeing pictures of these big giant fish and seeing all these fish pictures, and they think that it's really easy to go there and just catch fish. It's not. I mean, it is very tough. I fish it, know every stump on that lake, and it still mind boggles me someday. I'm like, why are they not biting? But um, so what it's doing is the pressure's going downhill because there's a lot of guys making that trip down there on their own, or even local guys. I hardly ever see local guys out there anymore. They're just not catching the fish that they used to. But it's because we have a lower number of fish, and in comparison to having a low number of fish, and then you have a lot of fishing pressure, your fish become much smarter. Which I know everyone says that all my fish are smarter than your fish. Who cares? They're all freaking smart eventually, right? Um, but what I'll say about our fish, if you catch a 40 inch or plus, I used to say 45. Anymore, it's just 40 inches. You catch a 40 inch or plus, its mouth screwed up. You're not going to catch a fish that's never been caught before at 40 inches long. It's just not happening. So that they've been caught before, they've seen stuff, but all you gotta do is just adapt and change. And just a lot of these guys in musky fishing, they don't want to do it. They can't put themselves to trying something new. And that is what I've done since day one, is just trying new things all the time. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that on Mayhem's on previous podcasts you've been on. I mean, I think it's something we certainly try to do. After hearing about like guys like yourself will have success doing it. Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's not going to work out every time, but the
No.
more you do it, you're gonna stumble into some awesome stuff. I love that this is kind of turned into a little bit of a Southern Reservoir podcast because it's stuff that we don't get to talk about a lot. And this question is going to be a little bit self-serving because it sounds like we are going to be making the trip down to Cave here for the PMTT again come April.
Yep.
My first time down there last year, I personally was blown away about that style of fishing, right? Like just totally different than what I grew up on in Wisconsin. Some similarities, but like you were talking about the standing timber, one thing for me that I have a hard time wrapping my head around, and I don't know if this is the same, by you, but like the standing timber that's coming either barely under the surface of the water or out of the water in 20 plus feet of water. and you're casting for those fish, right? I mean, Gus had some success jigging down there 2 years ago in the tournament by himself. We tried it a bit last year. It wasn't the ticket, but casting was. You don't have to give away too much here, but like you talk about casting through that heavy timber when you caught the state record, and you're saying it's more dense than at cave. Like, how are you doing that? I mean, I had minimal to no confidence when we were doing that, fishing like the top 10 feet of the water column, trying to work it through that timber. And then, anytime I'd let the bait get a little bit too low in the water column, I'm getting snagged up every third cast, getting pissed.
Yep.
Like, do you have any secret sauce, I guess, in a sense of how to kind of target those muskies in that deep timber?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've guiding, I deal with a lot of snags, and I get snagged all the time too. No matter what you're going to do, you're going to get snagged. You just can't get frustrated with it. You just got to fish. The couple things that I'll say is one, do not bomb a cast like you are in Minnesota in 5 feet of water with a Cannonball Junior. Do not do that in the timber. I will smack you across the face if you do that. Number two is, and the reason you don't do that is because there's trees that you can't see. You might be looking at a tree, but there's 5 trees behind that tree that you can't see. And the other thing is your bait's going to get too deep by the time it gets to the tree that you actually think the fish are going to be in. So if you bomb a castaway out there with a bulldog, you can work it ripping on it fast. Well, about halfway back on your cast, on a decent cast, is going to be the deepest your bait's going to be. So you don't want to be too deep in them trees. So in the southern reservoirs, something that you guys maybe not have thought about, that might help you, is one thing to do is look on the lake that you're fishing. If you know it's got standing timber, look on the lake that you're fishing. Look at how far down they drop in the winter pool. So, like my home lake, they drop it down about 6 feet. Okay, so what happens is that tree is exposed to the air for during the winter 6 feet and up. So now when that lake floods back up, a lot of them prickly little tree limbs and a lot of the big stumps are broke off 6 feet down. There's still trees up, but their little limbs and stuff are broke off from the surface to 6 feet down. So that will give you a good key to if you don't have. I mean, almost everybody's got a live scope now. You can see the freaking tree, but pre having the live scope, you don't know what's under the water, right? You have no idea how thick that tree is. So if it drops down 6 feet, general rule of thumb is that majority of the bulk of the tree is going to be deeper than 6 feet. So you pick baits that don't run as deep. Like you don't want a bait that runs 12 feet deep if the lake only drops down 6 feet down, depending on the bait. I'll get into that in a second. But so don't make a big long bomb cast. Try to figure out how thick the tree is depth wise. I want to say cave, they drop it down like 10, 12 feet if I remember right.
That sounds spot on. I think majority of the spots, whatever pool that we've been fishing the last 2 years, 10, 12 feet was like the mark to get your bait down to. Any deeper, you're screwed. You're getting snagged way too often.
You'll get tangled up like crazy. So that's what I was thinking it was, but I haven't been down there so long. So that's a super good tip right there, and I don't think I've ever said that. But so then you go into baits. So I'll tell you baits side of things. A bulldog, I love a bulldog. I catch a ton of fish on bulldogs every year. Bulldogs suck in the timber. They're not the worst thing. You can use them, but you're gonna get, just say if I make 30 casts with a bulldog through thick timber, it'll get snagged 12 times. If I make 30 casts in a timber with a Medusa, it'll get snagged 5 times. A Medusa will outshine a bulldog in timber. I don't know why, but it does. There's something about its head shape. It runs in a tree, rolls off of it. A bulldog will kind of roll over and just get snagged. And when I'm out there fishing, all I'm thinking about is efficiency and making that cast, making that cast, making that cast. So over time, I've developed what baits go through the trees better. A Medusa 100% goes through a tree way better than a bulldog. And that's I would say a large number of fish in the South are caught more so on Medusas than bulldogs, rather than in Minnesota in the Clearwater. And what I like to do, another little side note here, is bulldog clear the water. The more so I use bulldogs. The dirtier the water, the more so I use Medusas. And it's not really because one pulls farther or not. It's just the bulldog is a faster, more of a hop. A Medusa is more of a sluggish pull. Even if you're ripping on it, that bait stops as soon as you stop. So it's better in that dirtier water. They zone in on a little bit better. So as far as rubber, I prefer a Medusa. You want something that is going to hit them trees and get through. And something to keep in mind with this timber is, like I said, you don't want to get frustrated with getting snagged. That's what I tell all my clients, because if you get a guy out there and he gets snagged first 5 casts of the day, he's already not casting close enough to the tree to ever get bit. You have to get on that tree. If you don't get it perfectly on that tree, those fish won't come out. Some days, if you don't hit that tree, then fish ain't going to eat. So you have to just deal with getting snagged. Um, so rubber wise, I prefer Medusa. A bait that I started using the last 3 or 4 years that we've had on the show that is absolutely phenomenal, and you guys should probably get them if you're going to cave. Is a gar bait from Deadhead Musky Tackle. And that bait is like a Speed Jones makes that bait, and he called me when he made that bait, and he said, "Chase, I got something real special for you to try out." I said, "What's this?" He goes, "Well, it's called a gar bait." And he sends me a picture of it. And it's like the ugliest freaking bait you could ever possibly make. Looks just like an alligator gar. And he said it's a dive and sink. It's really special. And I'm thinking in my head, that's what every bait is, other than like a dive and rise. Every bait you throw out there is gonna, you pull it and it's gonna sink. Like this, there's nothing to this thing. So I get this bait and start using it in the river, and I lost like a 45 on it one day. And honestly, I didn't throw it till probably another year. And I get in the lake, start looking at it. I'm like, I bet that nose would go through the trees real good. So what it has is it's got a line tie, and then it's got about a 2 inch nose, and that thing sinks at a 45. So that bait will hit them limbs, and you'll get snagged on a limb, and you'll be snagged. And you sit there and pop, and then sometimes they'll come off popping, but a lot of times you got to pull straight on it, and that bait will kick off that limb and just sit there, and you get whacked. And ever since I figured that out, I've caught a pile of fish on that bait. And instantly I called Speed, and I'm like, "Speed, I know you're an awesome bait maker," which he is. And I said, "But you have no idea what you designed here." He goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "You designed a really good bait." He goes, "Well, I know I designed a really good bait, obviously." I'm like, "No, Speed, this is what I'm doing with it." And I'm telling him I'm throwing it in a laydown or a standing timber tree, just a tree that I know that there's probably a fish in, you know. I'm letting that bait sink down in the heart of that tree. With anything else, it's going to be snagged instantly. But it goes down in that tree, and I'm not letting it sink to the bottom through the entire tree. You're 100% going to get snagged. You want to get, say 25% of those limbs in a laydown. If you break up the tree into 100, 25%, the top 25% of that dense tree is all I want to get into with the bait. And it's gonna. And for the listeners, if you buy this bait and you get snagged and lose it, don't call me. I don't want to hear from you. You will lose the bait. It isn't snag proof. It's just really good about coming through that stuff. Um, but so I let it sink in that heart, it lay down, and then I just give it some slack, and just like you're working a bulldog or like you're working anything, pull pause. I like a little bit of slack in that line, and that bait will dance out of there and just bang on limbs the whole way through. And it's almost every time you hit a limb, you pop off of it, you run up your slack, and you feel the lightest little tick, and you set the hook, and you got one. I mean, the fish can't stand it. So that is an amazing bait to throw instead of like rubber. A dying dog comes through a tree really good, and I think it's just because it's big, wide nose, big, wide head. Now, a dying dog, when it does get snagged, sucks. They don't come off very easy, but they don't get snagged super often. A little awesome one that Cave Run is. I mean, there's been millions of fish caught Cave Run on this, and by me, is called a Bill Norman crankbait. And it's an old bait. They don't make them anymore. They're really hard to find. Ever since we filmed on Stonewall and I caught a fish on the Bill Norman, they've been really hard to come by on eBay. But they're super junk. Like they are the junkiest crankbait ever, but they got a big heart-shaped lip. That bait will dig right through them laydowns and just be banging on limbs the whole way through, and they're very hard to get snagged. That's an awesome one. So if you're fishing timber and you're wanting to hit that stuff, that's number one, number two for sure. A Bill Norman crankbait and a gar bait from Speed Jones on Deadhead Musky Tackle.
Appreciate the help. I mean, we're probably going to edit all that out.
Yeah.
Almost
too much good info.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And
if you
totally messed up.
and I talk about a lot of that on Mayhem's 10,000 Casts, the Tennessee episode last year and then the West Virginia episode last year. Both will explain both.
Yeah.
I do remember you talk. I do remember the Bill Norman crankbait because you kind of said the same thing, and I found it funny. where you're
Yeah.
like, man, this thing's just junk, but it catches fish, and
Oh, they're
I mean,
terrible.
it's awesome.
And I'll tell you a little tip of those. The
Yeah.
hooks are horrible. I could bend them out with my pinky toe, but you want it to be like that, because if you put like what I know guys that'll get them and they put just giant musky sized hooks on them. One, you don't get the action. Two, when you do get snagged, you're not getting it out. So those little wiry horrible hooks are awesome, because if you do get snagged in a tree, you can usually bend them out.
Uh-huh.
And that's another little tip there. Use baits. Put a little lighter gauge hooks on them baits. I mean, guys act like muskies are like wicked tuna, like they're going to straighten out a freaking ginormous hook. Yes, they can straighten out a hook great. But if you fight them a little bit easier on that smaller light gear stuff on a medium heavy rod, you'll be fine. I mean, I've caught piles and piles of muskies on bass crankbaits straight from freaking Dick's Sporting Goods. So
Right.
if you just be easy on them with the right rod, you'll get them in there without straightening those hooks.
That's awesome. Oh man,
Sweet.
good stuff. Good stuff. I'm like just taking mental notes. I've written a few things down here, so
Right, right.
feeling a little bit more well equipped to head down there this year than last.
The jigging wise, what bait were you catching on down there?
Jigging wise,
I assume Bondi, but if you don't want to say, don't say.
no, I'll say it. We said it in our podcast a while ago. Anyways, they were both on Red October tubes,
Okay.
Ninja tubes.
Now let me ask this: when you got that Red October tube stuck in a tree, how hard was that sucker to get out of there?
That was pretty tough until I got
Mm-hmm.
that thing you could send down the line with the
Bait
chain
knocker?
and the weight. Yeah. Yeah,
So
that thing was game changer.
tubes are awesome, but they snag really bad jigging wise. They
Yeah.
snag on themselves. They snag in the tree really bad. But they're obviously amazing for jigging. I will tell you this: a Bondi. Of course, everybody and their brother jigs a Bondi, but there's a reason why a Bondi is so good, is because it can get in a tree, and you can get a Bondi out of a tree 9 times out of 10 without having to get that lure retriever out. And what you do is when you get snagged on that Bondi, okay, you set the hook. Oh, okay, it's not a fish. So now put a little slack in it and just jiggle it with a little slack line. And what happens is that weight of that Bondi shaking on that tree, and a lot of times it'll come right off.
Yeah.
So a
'Cause they're much
Bondi,
heavier, right?
yeah,
Like
oh
much heavier.
well, it's just the way they're shaped and everything. They just jiggle off the tree so much better than anything else. And when I'm jigging like really thick timber, I use a Bondi. And I hate using Bondis because everybody and their brother uses one. But when it comes to jigging really, really thick stuff, you can't hardly beat them.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So want to go back. I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but you brought back up Mayhems earlier. One thing I did want to ask you about with the filming and everything, lot to talk about there, because I got some more questions after this. But besides people telling you that you're catching too many fish, you should catch less fish on every episode. What has been kind of like some of the feedback you've gotten since starting the show? Like, has it been, overall like a cool experience for you, like putting yourself out there like that, filming, getting it out on, YouTube, and I know it's on some other streaming platforms and whatnot too. But like I mean, that's some serious exposure to be out there and fishing in front of a lot of people. And like I go on Facebook, like how the musky community is when they're watching other people fish. Like everyone's got something to say.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious here from like a guy that's around our age, what that's been like.
I mean, it's a really cool experience. It's really awesome. I mean, to go to these shows and have guys come up to you that know you. And one thing I tell listeners, if you go to the show, keep in mind, and I will fully hard to say this too, I'm horrible with names. I remember faces, but I'm horrible with names. But one
Me
thing
too.
that I wish like we could somehow do a PSA before you walk into the show. It says, not everyone that you met last year is going to remember your name and who you are. Because guys will come up to you and they're like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And you're sitting there just trying to remember who they are, and they don't say their name or anything. And I know that sounds really horrible, and most guys in the industry probably wouldn't say that because it sounds rude. But I'll just be straightforward. Like, I don't remember guys' names all the time. I mean, you're meeting so many people; it's so hard to remember you. So it's a really cool experience to go there and then have people come up to you, random, all different ages. I mean, from kids to older guys come up to you and be like, "Man, I really, really, your show is awesome. I really love watching you every Saturday. Like, I learned so much from you." Or I mean, I'm getting messages on Facebook probably at least once to two times a week during show season of guys texting me. They just watched the show and they're texting me a more in-depth question that they're having from watching the show, which is really cool. And I encourage everyone to do that. I don't care if you message me or not. If it might take me 3 days to answer you, but I'll answer you. Feel free 100% to ask me anything you want. I'm a complete open book. I do not care about um, wasting away my bite or something. If I've got a bite that I want to keep secret, no one's ever going to see it on film, and I'm never going to talk about it. No one's even going to know I have it going on. So if you even have a simple idea that I'm doing something, I will tell you about it. I want everyone to know that so they can ask me. But it's a really cool experience though to have those guys doing that. I mean, I've had guys that are like 50. I mean, this is 2 years ago. I'm 20 years old or 21 years old 2 years ago. And the guys that are like 50 years old come up and want like an autograph. I'm like, who the hell does this guy think I am right now? Like, I'm a freaking kid that's barely can talk on film, catches a couple fish a year, and you want an autograph. Like, what in the world? Like, it's just it's so weird to think about. But it's cool.
That's super cool. I hear you there with the name thing. I can sometimes just not fully remember. It's tough
Yeah.
when you're coming from living in the middle of nowhere and then you go down for a weekend and meet, hundreds of people that are walking
Yeah.
by. It's a lot at once, but it's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I'm meeting so many guys just because my spectrum's so much broader. I'm going from, West Virginia, Ohio, PA, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Illinois, I mean everything. The whole muskie range from Tennessee to Minnesota. I'm meeting 4 or 5 new people every year, easily. Like people
Mhm.
that are fishermen, and then meeting just random guys at the show. Who knows what that number is? I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy. When you go to these shows, there's people from everywhere, all walks of life coming to talk to you and whatnot. So,
So what is your season like now? I mean, what's your guiding calendar looking like these days?
right now, what I'm doing, so last year I owned Muskie Bumper. I sold Muskie Bumper in December or January last year, one of the two. And decided to get back into full-time guiding. I missed it too much. I am decided in my life, I don't care if I make $1 or $100, as long as I'm on the water, I'm happy. And I'm not going to be able to ever do anything different than that. So I sold it, got back into guiding. So here's kind of what my rundown of my 12 months a year looks like. So starting in March, I guide. Usually January, February, I do not guide. I never have. This year I was going to, and we got about 20 some inches of snow last week back home in West Virginia. Locked everything up. So I'm like, okay, wow, that didn't work out very well. So I don't usually guide in February or in January, and I don't usually guide in February. March is when I start, March 1st. March 1st I start, and I'll guide in West Virginia, March through about the end of May. Then June, I go to Ohio for about a week, 2 weeks sometimes, depending on the year. And I jump around the lakes over there, just whatever I feel like that year, honestly. And then after that gets done, I come home, unload the crap, load everything back up, burn up to Minnesota. And this year, what I did is I stayed in Minnesota from June to about the end of November is what I did. I come home about Thanksgiving week, and then I get right back into guiding for the whole month of December in West Virginia. So I'm
Nice.
trying to do as many months as I can right now. I'm doing about 10 months a year. Um, I want to open up probably February, but I'm not going to really open that up completely to the public just because weather sucks. So what I do is like what I did in January, which none of those trips worked out. But what I did in January is I clients that I have that I know are, retired guys, very flexible with calendars. I give like, hey, I got this, and this. You want to do these days? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. No deposit, no nothing. Like if weather permitting, we'll go. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And I said, well, I might call you the day before and say we're not going. So don't book hotels or anything. So that's just kind of what I'm doing in January, February at the moment. But March through December is full time fishing. It just depends on where I'm at.
Are you like fully booked out when you go over to Minnesota for the year, or like how was that? How did you start in Minnesota? Like, what was it slow your first couple years?
So in Minnesota, this year is the first year that I even guided a little bit. So I did like maybe 3 to 4 trips a year previously to this
Okay.
past year. And the reason I did that is because like guys will ask me like, well, why aren't you guiding up here? I'm like, dude, I've been guiding for 6 months already. Like, this is kind of cool to come up here and just have a break. So I've left it as more so a vacation. And then also on top of that, we're filming. We're doing majority of the filming during that time of year. So it's really hard for me to book a lot of trips in that time frame. But this past winter, I bought my first house, so now I've got a house payment that's beating on the door behind me every 10 minutes. So I am going to be doing more guiding in Minnesota. What I did last year is I just texted a couple of my repeat clients, asked them, hey, you guys want to go to Minnesota for a week? And they're like, yeah, sure. So I did probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 days last summer, max, if that. I don't even know off the top of my head. And that was just the clients that I've had from West Virginia. And then I did maybe 1 or 2 trips for Agency Bay for Bob Weeks. He hooked me up with a couple. But I really wasn't wanting to guide much on Leech because that was really my last summer was the first year I've ever had on Leech. I fished a lot of the Western stuff. I've fished Leech 2 days the year before this past year. So this year I wanted a full summer to just sit there and just absolutely cover water. And what I did was I bought a brand new auto chart chip for the hummingbird. I bought a brand new hummingbird, slapped it on that boat, and I looked like Popeye by the end of the summer because I got a tiller. And I idled Leech Lake at 6.5 miles an hour for days on end. Like absolutely absurd amount of gas I burnt this year. I mean, insane. Um, but I've got weed edges mapped, and it is really cool because I told Seifert, Matt Seifert's up there. I'm hanging out with him a lot. I told him, I told Bob Weeks of Agency Bay. I'm like, guys, I really don't want to know anything. Like, don't tell me spots. Don't tell me what's going on. I said, if I get up there and I haven't caught a fish in a month, I'll ask you. So I didn't want to know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to start fresh, have a whole new fresh thing. And obviously, we communicated back and forth some, for sure. But like, I remember one of the first weeds that I found that wasn't like a known weeds that wasn't on a map. I'm mapping it out. I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be so good in the summer. Like, there's no one here. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like a football field size. So I sat there and auto charted that whole thing for like 4 hours. Just starting to get done. I thought, all right, I might fish it for till dark. Some dude in a big old giant ranger comes ripping up, stops, put trolling motor down, starts casting a bucktail. I'm like, God, dog, it's someone already knows about it. And I get back and I ask Bob and Matt, and I'm like, so I found a weed bit today, but I was hoping it was secret. But some dude pulled up, started casting it. And he goes, dude, there's probably not any. You're not gonna find anything secret in here. And I said, well, here's where it was. And he goes, yeah, that's the most famous weeds in the entirety of Leech Lake. I'm like, oh, great. I found them on my own though.
Yeah.
That's something to be
Glad
said.
I idled for
That's
6.5
hilarious.
hours to find the
Yeah.
community hole.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So, what
But
are your thoughts on Leech?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a giant playground. Everything you want to do is there. It's got tons of fish, lots of big fish. There has to be. The one thing about Leech that I just don't understand is how come there's not like a bunch of 55 pluses in that thing getting caught every year. I don't know if, you'll hear one every once in a while, there's been 57s caught here. They're here. It's just, there is an absolutely absurd amount of 50 to 52 and a halves is what I found this year is what I caught. A lot of 48 to 52 and a halves. There's piles of them. As far as above that caliber, I didn't really see that many. I can think of like 2 fish I saw all summer that was probably in that mid 50 range. Other than that, I didn't really contact that many giant ones, but it's just such a dynamic fishery. It's what I loved about it being from a 2,800 acre lake that's only 150 yards wide. I never really dealt with waves that much. I did at Brad's area, but his area is like 6,000 acre lakes. You're not dealing with 4.5, 5 footers out there.
Right. 100,000 acres is a different ball game.
Oh, it's way different ballgame. And
Mm.
so getting up there and learning how to run the waves, learning how this wind I can still run up, sneak up through this little shoreline here, and then shoot across the waves this way and get up there and fish. Learning all that was just an absolute blast. Learning that, getting that shallow sand bite. Leech just has like just some of the coolest fishing I've ever done in my entire life till this day. as far as just shallow water, big fish, right in the middle of the day when they shouldn't be there. There's 50 inches laying in 2 feet of water. Now, what I will say is the majority of the locals up here, the guides and just guys that I know, all said this was the worst year of leech ever. And me not knowing what a normal year was, I was content with it. I mean, yeah, it was definitely tough. There's some tough stretches and some tough days and whatnot, but it wasn't horrible. I mean, I didn't think it was horrible, to be honest. I mean, I thought it was pretty similar to like the western, like north, like Brad's area of Minnesota, like west side of Minnesota. Um, so I'm really excited to see if next year is a normal year. Because if last year's was a horrible year, next year's going to be amazing if it's good. If it's back to normal. So I'm really excited about that, and then that, and just everything that I learned. I mean, I was finding stuff. I was finding stuff from June to November. I found new stuff almost every week. I'd find, oh, these weeds didn't grow. Like, what you got to think about is all the weeds in the lake don't grow at the same time.
Right.
So you find these weeds, well then, and you look at this spot, man, there should be weeds right here, but they're not. Well, I'd come back to them in October and I'm like, holy shit, there's beautiful cabbage here, and like nobody's here, you know? So there's a lot of that stuff that I'm really excited to see and see if it grows earlier next year or whatnot. I mean, I've got everything waypointed, everything auto charted that I would need. I mean, it all needs dialed in, of course. It's 100,000 acres. But majority of the stuff I've got. And then fishing rocks, I'd never fished rocks before. There's not really giant rock piles in western Minnesota. I mean, you got pebbles and stuff that we catch off of them, but not giant boulders the size of a truck. It's super awesome.
So
Gotcha.
when you were exploring and like kind of, teaching yourself, figuring out the lakes in Minnesota, I mean, like you said earlier, you got to be able to try something new if you want to catch fish in a pressured body of water. Were you taking some baits from back home down south and experimenting with those? And, I feel like there's a handful of baits that everyone in Minnesota likes to throw: big rubber, big blades, beavers. Did you find like some little secret killers from your neck of the woods that worked in Minnesota?
Yeah. As far as like structure fishing, I didn't really do that much open water casting this year. I did mainly trolling. And didn't do so hot. I mean, I caught a couple fish, nothing crazy. But it sounds like most of the trollers didn't really do that great in June. But I did get a couple fish trolling, but that was all normal stuff, headlocks, locks, same stuff everyone uses up there. As far as like structure fishing and whatnot, when the fish pulled up shallow, yes, there was quite a few things that was good. One thing in particular is those fish are in. I told you about the sand bite. If you guys are familiar with Leech Lake, you know that you've heard of the sand bite. I got to thinking in my head, and those fish will sit up in the sand. And everyone thinks that they're in sand, 3 feet of water. It'd be impossible not to catch them, right? Well, they don't bite very good. And I don't know if this year they just did not bite or if that's how normal sand fishing is, but they did not bite very good at all this year. And I got to thinking about it. I'm like, dude, it'd be perfect for this is a freaking round trap. So I squeezed out an old Lunging Lures 6-inch rattling shad, slapped it on my rattle rod from back home, and got up there in that 3 foot of water and that sand, just threw it up there and burned it as fast as I possibly could. And I will say this, I did not catch any big fish as I really, really wanted to. I'd love to catch a 50-inch on a rattle trap in Minnesota, but I did not catch any big ones. Like 40 inches about the biggest I caught, but I only tried it for about 4 days because by the time I really I thought about it all summer, but I never did it, By the time I got confident enough to be screwing around and playing with other things, they fished were only on the sand for about a week, and then I didn't find hardly any more fish on sand. But I caught like 2 or 3 fish in about a week on a route trap on leech in about 3 feet of water in the sand. That route trap's just, you hit it. I mean, I'm hitting the beach. Literally, bait is landing on shore. Exactly what I do in March back home. Hits the shore, and then you just start cranking like crazy, and then things chase that sucker down and eat it like crazy. It was
Awesome.
a blast. Yeah,
Are we talking about musky fishing or barracuda fishing here?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing.
Pretty
I
damn
guarantee
close.
you. I thought about that actually. It's funny you said that. I want to try CUDA tubes up there on that sand.
Oh, dude,
Like
those things are nuts. We've used them.
Their
That's
little
yeah,
8-inch CUDA tube and perch collar would be the crap
yeah.
in the
I hope
sand.
I hope you don't take this question the wrong way, but like, how often do you not think about musky fishing?
Never. Not like full heartedly, never. I mean, I truly don't think about it. Don't think about anything else. I mean, it's bad. I mean, you talk to Brad. Brad's finally got it dialed in to know how to communicate with Chase Gibson. You just got to go. You just got to say musky like every 3 or 4 words is what he says,
Look, just
and
like
he's not
snap you
wrong.
right back into it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
into listening. Like, oh, what?
The only time that I'm not thinking about muskies that much is once it gets cold back home, everything locks up, and I'm not fishing. I transitioned into coyote hunting. I got into coyote hunting like 2 years ago.
Oh,
The
cool.
thermals and all that crap. So I've done a
That's
lot
sweet.
of that. Yeah, I've done a lot of that. That's the only time I'm really not thinking about muskies that much.
That's a cool thing to get into. We got that up here. I've never done it, but it's in
Yeah,
the back of my mind to get into that at some point. And
it's a freaking blast. I shake more on a freaking stupid coyote than I do a 50-inch muskie anymore. And you get them,
dang,
you
finding
get
a new
them.
rush.
Yeah, you get them howling and come running up on top of you in the middle of the night in the field by yourself and 200 yards from you. For watching them from 200 yards howling to 50 feet from you when you shoot them, it's
That's
in 10
sweet.
seconds. It's awesome. You know,
That's pretty wild. So what does get you jacked up musky fishing these days? I mean, I'm sure it's still every time you catch a fish, it's amazing. But like, obviously you've been through quite a bit in the last couple years.
yeah.
Like this day and age, like it sounds like, I mean, just hearing you talk about Leech, like as this playground that's kind of like scratched this mental itch for you.
Yeah.
But like, outside of that, learning new water, like what gets you jacked up these days?
Well, like you said, learning new water for sure. But I'll be honest, and I know you guys know, and I don't know if you want to get into this. I could care less if we do or don't. Doesn't matter to me because everyone talks about it. But the whole live scope situation, right? I've done everything with live scope that you could possibly imagine. I've sharp shot. I've done normal stuff, and I did this 5 years ago. I was sharp shooting 4 or 5 years ago and didn't even know what sharp shooting was. I didn't know if anyone else was doing it. I didn't know what was going on. And it wasn't quite to the effect of how Minnesota's going or Wisconsin, where they're driving around and seeing them and shooting them or throwing to them, whatever. I was more so back then. I was using a trolling motor and just looking around and finding a fish. A lot slower, but basically the same principle, right?
Hmm.
Um, what gets me excited and wound tight anymore is like I was telling you when I was doing trolling in June. I guarantee you I could have sharp shot, however many fish I wanted to, probably got a couple 50 inchers, but they all have been live scoping. I didn't care about that. I went straight to trolling and I trolled every day. I ain't gonna say I didn't live scope a little bit. Obviously I did. I mean, you get pretty tired of not catching crap when everyone else is catching fish around you. So that's what gets me excited is trying to catch them fish without any electronics, with nothing. I don't even want to know they're there. I could absolutely care less. Like if you could tell me tomorrow, you can go out and you can catch 5 50 inchers looking at live scope on a tube, or you can go up there and you can catch a 50 incher without even knowing he's there. I will choose that 150 incher every day of the week, all day long, 100%. You can tell me
Hmm.
I could go scope five. This is going to sound really crazy, but I promise you it's true. You can tell me I could go scope 55 inchers tomorrow night with an Orba, or I can go tomorrow and catch 150 incher up shallow on a rabbit squirrel. I'm going to choose that 50 incher on a rabbit squirrel. I just I've done it enough. I don't care about it anymore. I like that non live scope, non side imaging bite. And I mean, side imaging I still like too because you still have a little bit of that not knowing what's going on. You're still seeing you can sharpshoot just like you can with live scope if you know how to read side imaging, but you still have a little bit of a not knowing what's going on there for 30 seconds that your bait's going over their head. You know,
Hmm.
so like that I like, but if traditional fishing, just like I used to do back in the old day, that's what I love to do. And I will choose to not catch fish to grant my wishes on that. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about booking a trip with me, and you think that I'm gonna do what I want just because it makes me happy, that's not true. I'm gonna do whatever we need to do to get in the boat to get a fish in the boat with you. But I will 100% be asking you before you book the trip or during the trip. I'll ask you, all right, man, it's tough doing this. I mean, do you want to use the live scope around a little bit? And I'm never going to just go straight sharpshooting with clients. Never, won't do it. Now I will utilize the live scope, but anymore, I've had a lot of guys that just like, dude, I don't even want the live scope in the water. I'm like, have at her, bud. I love that. Let's do it. You know. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get people on fish, but I'm not going to drive you around at 6 miles an hour and let you throw a fish all day long. we're going to cast in that open water until we see a fish, and then you can throw to that fish, because that's what you need to do with. And I just think that's what you need to do with guys that's never caught a muskie, or guys that's wanting to get into muskie fishing. They need to learn the hard way, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I think you said something though that like really resonated with me. We've kind of honestly, we've like barely touched on it, but we've it's started to come up, I think, in a few conversations we have. Like we could, like you said, we could do the whole live scope thing. It's a bunch of the same tired points over and over again. But I think there is something to be said about what you were just talking about that is a little bit new. And it's something that I know we've started to experience, and it sounds like you are too. And I'm curious, and I want to be careful. Like I don't want to overgeneralize because I know people still use it. It's don't get me wrong. Don't construe my words here. I'm not saying that people are getting tired of using it, but I do think there are people like ourselves and kind of what you're saying, where it's like when we got live scope, we were dumb. We were young, like we didn't know really what it was. This was before all the debate and all the stuff and well, yada yada yada. We're like, dang, this tool is like crazy. You can see what's going on under the water. Like, why the hell would we not use this thing? Like, this thing is the
Yeah.
best thing ever. And it was this like shiny new toy that we just like we're like, this is so fun. And in Wisconsin, like we fish weeds, we fish shallow. So it's not like we were out really sharpshooting anyways, but like it was in the boat. I'll say this after a couple of years of having it now. I mean, Gus and Brian, would you guys agree? Like, I think we've talked about this at length, but like, it's just not really become something we like enjoy using as much anymore. And I'm wondering if more people are starting to get on board with that. I don't know if that's true or whatever, but like I feel like I've heard it again in my small bubble of people I talk to about muskie fishing, like even people that bought it a couple years ago, and now it's like you hit the nail on the head. It's like would I rather catch one, fish not using it or a couple fish using it, like you'd catch the one fish not using it.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
just wonder if that's going to start kind of coming back to the mean with technology and like it'll self-correct almost itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just overly optimistic or what, but.
Yeah. Me and Brad have had these conversations with hundreds of people every year for the last 3 or 4 years, and I honestly believe, I'm not gonna say we were ahead, but we saw the downfalls of it 3 years ago and wasn't sure which way, how to attack it. How do you tell everyone, hey guys, there's this awesome technology that's going to make you catch 5 times more muskies than you ever will in your life. And all you got to do is go out here and do this. But half of them are going to die, or most of them are going to die. How do you tell them? How do you tell guys to do that? And they believe you and just be like, oh, he's right. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to kill him. What's going to happen is 90% of people that's going to hear that, they go, holy shit, I'm going to go do that and catch those fish. And then they're gonna learn the hard way. And what I mean by that is they're not gonna listen to me saying you're gonna kill fish if you catch that. If you're gonna kill fish if you throw to them too deep. They're So don't do it. They're not gonna listen to me. They're gonna go out there and test it on their own to make sure it's real. Well, the problem is when I don't know if this is making sense, but we talked about making a show on this 3 years ago, telling people, okay, this is open water muskie fishing in Minnesota. The fish are out here in the open. You can take a live scope, you can see them, you can throw over, you can catch them. Okay. The problem is that fish that are 25 feet or deeper are going to die. Fish that are 20 feet or deeper are going to die. And sometimes randomly you'll catch one that's only 5 to 10 feet down under the surface. It's going to die from barotrauma. So we wanted to do that, but then we thought, well, how bad would it be if we do that? And then we let everyone know what's going on. So everyone buys a live scope, goes out there and tries it on their own. And instead of just taking our words for concrete evidence, they just go try it on their own, and all the fisheries are just done in a year. So that's why we never did that. And we've never really talked about that up until right now, to be honest. But that's what we thought, and we've been just trying to figure it out. So kind of what I've always done is I tell people exactly how it is. I've caught fish that are too deep. They've got barotrauma. They died. I quit doing it. I've caught fish in hot water using live scope, even without live scope. They died. I didn't know any better. I had no idea. No one knew any. No one told me, hey, if you throw that fish right now, you're going to kill it. I had no idea. But once I did it, I did not do it anymore. Well, the problem is, and you guys know this, I know this, everyone knows this anymore. Social media and egos are going to ruin everything, because the guys like, I caught 50 inches this year. and it was awesome. And like the guy that don't know any better is gonna be like, okay, that's pretty cool. But the guys that do know better know that some of them fish are probably dead, and most of them were live scoped. Which, if you catch them live scoping, I don't care at all. If you catch one live scope, I do not care. But if you're throwing at them too deep and you're killing half of them to get that picture of that fish, you suck. That's how I think about it. It just the whole education thing about it is I'm just trying to tell people like what is going on. Okay, this guy seems like he's an amazing fisherman because he's posting a fish every single day. Okay, he's an amazing fisherman, but the technology's out there now that muskies aren't fish of 10,000 casts anymore. If you don't want them to be, you spend some money, they're not 10,000 casts anymore. But it's not truly musky fishing anymore. You're getting to the point where it's just not that way anymore. Um, and I think a lot of people, I know a lot of my clients, it kind of surprised me, and a lot of the guys that I talk to, just random people that are, on like Josh Borowski's Muskie Insider thing. I did that the other day. Talking to those guys, I ask everyone straightforward, what would you rather do? Go out live scoping and catch a bunch of fish, or go out traditional fishing, learn how to fish, how to work the bait, why we're doing what we're doing, and then catch one or lose one? You know, 90% of the people that I've talked to have chosen the traditional way of fishing, learning how to do it, how to catch the fish, why he's there, all that. People want that. There is a select few people that are just wanting to go out there and just catch a fish, but those guys are probably not going to return clientele for you. And they're probably just not even fishermen. They just want to go, they see a big fish picture, they book a trip and they go. That's perfect for them. But majority of the guys that's really wanting to learn, succeed on their own, all that, do not want to do the drive around, throw a fish, and catch a fish.
Yeah.
But I see it coming around, like you're thinking, like you're saying. I do really see it coming around. People are starting to realize, okay, this is getting out of hand, or they're just seeing, okay, this guy's not the best muskie fisherman on the planet Earth because he caught 450 muskies last night or last year. It's because he's doing this and this and this, and he's got these body of waters and this and that and that. I mean, like I told you, there's been times that I've seen. I mean, trolling at Leech, I tested it. I'd troll right by them with a headlock or something, run perfectly over their head, 60, 70 feet out on side imaging. Watch the bait go over their head with live scope. Perfect. Fish just does this, just looks up and just sits there. Doesn't do a tail kick at all. And I've seen that fish, and I'm thinking, after about 4 or 5 of them, I was like, you know what? I wonder if that thing would eat casting. And the fish is only 10 feet deep. So I drop a waypoint on it the last time I go by it, crank in that matlock, take a freaking bait, throw over there. Don't even work it. Just hits the water and it sinks 2 seconds. A fish shoots up and eats it. I'm like, why the hell are they doing this? So I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just a weird deal. But there is a time frame when trolling's going to outfish the live scoping, and I think that's going to be more of a player here in the next couple of years. I truly do. These fish are getting used to this stuff. I don't think they're scared of live scope. People say that and whatever. I don't think so, because I've had fish do the exact same thing with side imaging.
But do you think it could be like a presentation based thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, they're going to get used to
that.
I've seen it back home in West Virginia already. So I've seen everything. This whole transition of what's going on up north has already happened in my little lake back home, and it's not. It's not. I'm not going to say that what they're doing back in my lake is what they're going to do up here. No, that ain't going to happen. But I've noticed they just get harder and harder and harder to trigger. They become more. You have to trigger them. You're not just going to throw over there and let the bait sink and the fish go shoot up and eat it like it's never seen one before. It's not going to happen every day. It's going to get to the point where you got to start actually knowing how to work the bait, knowing what bait is going to trigger them more so than this bait on this day. There's so much to it, to where they're getting ingrained just because they're getting caught so much more. And the scary thing for me about Minnesota is these fish that are just shooting up and eating the bait. If that fish is too deep, it's done. There's no second chances with it. I mean, guys will say, "Oh, you can put weights in them." That is BS. I'll tell you right now, it is BS. And I don't know if you guys have said that. If you have, I'm sorry, but that is BS. They will float and they're not going down. And then I've had guys say that, okay, well, if the water temp's 65 degrees, you can throw to them at 25 feet down. But if it's 68 to 70 degrees, you can't throw at them that deep. You can only throw them at 20 feet deep. That's not true. Barotrauma, and I'm no scientist, I could be completely wrong, but barotrauma is pressure in the water column. That is the fish's belly expanding. Why the hell would it matter what temperature the water is of that pressure? It's just not. What the problem is if that fish is 25 feet deep and you throw to it in 60-degree water, that fish is not going to be as stressed out as it would be in 75-degree water. So he's not going to have enough momentum to kick down, you know. But I've seen him get barotrauma in 50-degree water. Hell, I've seen him get barotrauma with in 30-some-degree water temperatures. So it's just something that it's too inconsistent to give a complete answer to what's going on with all this stuff, and it's too inconsistent to keep doing it. I mean, it's just things are going to change, and guys really need to be educated on this and really not do it anymore. We've got to protect what we have. With the trend of the entire country of muskie stocking, we need to protect what we have. You know, quit fishing for Facebook likes. I mean, I used to make fun of old guys saying that when I'd make a Facebook post, but now I understand what they're saying. You know, you're exposing a lot of things, and just for that thumbs up or whatever, that follow, which I get it. I mean, you guys are in it, I'm in it. We have to do that to succeed in our lives as far as our careers. You know, it has to happen. But if anyone looks at my social media, you realize that I suck at it, and I'm pretty good at it. I just absolutely despise doing it. I hate making Facebook posts or Instagram and all that crap. So I don't post very often. But it just it's just a whole ordeal that I hope a lot of people just open up their eyes and realize that what's going on, that they need to be more careful with everything.
Yeah. I mean, we really haven't gotten too much I mean, that's honestly probably the most in depth we've ever gotten about live
Yeah.
scope. That last like 3 minutes that you just went on.
Yeah.
Like we really have not gotten super technical about
Yeah.
the live scope stuff on here before. So, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, to me, it's, I think it's a good topic to talk about.
It is. The
I
reason
mean,
I was so off on it to begin with is just because that's all you see anymore. I feel like I get sick of
right.
hearing about it, sick of people talking about it.
That's
Even
honestly
though,
why we haven't, you know what I
yeah,
mean? We just felt like there
yep,
wasn't
Because
a
we're
point out there that
yep,
hadn't been said, and we at the end of the day, man, like the reason why we like doing this is like it's adrenaline junkie, like it's the thrill of the
yep.
chase. So like
Do
once
what you need to
that
do to get that.
yeah once
Yeah.
that once that drops off, whether it's, you know, because you're using live scope or whatever, like that's kind of part of where my theory, I guess, on the whole, maybe the reversion to the mean on people going back to the more traditional stuff. Like last week I touched on, you know, we keep a boat at our parents' place that has no electronics on it, and we
Mm-hmm.
use that sometimes and go out on the chain and fish, no mapping, nothing. A lot of
Yep.
fun. I mean, you know, it's
For
like
sure.
it's a little different, and obviously Gus has all the necessary technology that we lean on when we go out and fish in his boat and whatnot. But you know, I think Wisconsin, I know there's people doing it up here. I don't want to talk out of turn. Gus knows better than I, but like there's so much fun structure fishing up here in northern Wisconsin that like it's hard
so
to
much.
just go chase open water fish when you can, you know, you're on a flowage system or you're on a chain of lakes and you can
Mm-hmm.
fish 250 different structure spots throughout the day. It's
Yep.
like, you know, and it's something new to look at, a different presentation. Like you talk about what gets you excited, you know, when I ask you that question, it's like it's scratching that itch, doing different stuff all day. Um,
Yep.
and that, I think, I don't want to speak for Gus and Brian, but like that's the shit that like is fun for us, you know, like that's why
For sure.
we like doing.
I mean, I when like in December when I'm doing that guide, and I'm usually really booked in December because it's a really good time of year, so I try to book her solid. As soon as December ends, or as soon as I get a cancellation, I get out of that 620 Ranger with a 12-inch live scope and a 12-inch Hummingbird and a 10-inch mapping unit. I get out of that and I jump in the ugliest jet boat you've ever seen that does not have a fish finder on it, and I go fishing. That's what
Yeah.
I do every single time I get a day off. I go get in that John boat and I go fishing in the river. The other day we got at the I haven't done it in a couple years, but we pulled out the 12-foot John boat and floated the river and caught a nice fish. And I'm like, this is so much. I would much rather catch this fish than 50 45 inchers. And it was about a 45 46 incher, but it's in a 12-foot John boat side. You know, I mean, you can't get any better than
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
it's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
Grant, yeah, go ahead, Gus.
oh, I don't I mean I had a lot. I know you rambled on for a bit, but that was all great stuff. You know, like Max said, we haven't really heard all that, and it was really like rejuvenating to hear that because maybe the muskie industry would depict you and me, and I guess Max and Brian, they're still all young as quote unquote the shithead kids that are growing up with electronics and that's all they do and that's all they know how to fish. But
Yeah.
knowing your story, that you grew up on no electronics and using those type of stuff. It's kind of what we did too, fishing up
Yep.
here. It's just really nice to hear. And being an avid Backlash podcast listener, I want to say Brad Hoppe was among the first I ever heard anybody talking about panoptics, like before LiveScope even came out. So he had
Yeah.
the whole idea down. He probably saw it right from the inception, right when it was going on in Minnesota and seeing all that. And how it's rebounding. I think Max is right. I think people are just starting to refuse to maybe want to catch fish that way. Been there, done that, like
Yeah.
And we don't
what
want to
was the
overgeneralize. I know people are like, I know
right,
people are gonna listen to this and be like, no, everybody's out there scoping still. And again,
right,
we don't fish Minnesota regularly. So like I started fishing
right,
Minnetonka because I live in Minneapolis and I did see it out there, not to the extent that I thought I would, but it does exist. So I don't want people to like be listening
Yeah.
to this, be
and it
getting pissed,
exists
being
up
like,
here. I've
no,
seen it up
I
here.
see it all the time, and look, if you get triggered by this, maybe just take a second, self-reflect. But I do feel like sometimes people will see like one boat or two boats live scoping, and even if they see like 20 other boats casting normally, they'll be like everybody's scoping.
Yeah.
They're like
For sure. Yeah.
like I again, I
Yeah,
do feel like that kind of happens a little bit where, and we don't fish Minnesota a lot. I know it's a little different over there than it is in Wisconsin. Like I
Yeah.
said, people do it too in Wisconsin. So I
right.
just don't want to overgeneralize here. This is just kind of like our own little personal theories on stuff. Not everything we say is to a fact. Like I do think there's this thing in musky fishing. Talked to my buddy Kyle Friedges about this, about anecdotal evidence of like your own purview is what you think. So like, hey, I use floral line. It's never broken off before for me. So therefore it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's not true. Like there's other case studies out there of other people that have had that, not work out for them. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes I don't want to get into that where I'm like, oh, my little bubble is regressing on live scope. So therefore the whole muskie industry is. But at the same time, it's like, that's what I'm hearing. So, I think that there is a little bit of,
Yeah.
I guess momentum that way, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I do want to clarify real quick. If you're listening to this and you do use live scope and you catch a pile of fish and you don't kill them, I don't care about you. I don't. That is awesome, dude. Congrats. Like I want everyone to catch as many fish as they want to. But if you're going out there and you're killing them and you know you're killing them and you're doing it, you suck. Other than that, I don't
Mhm.
care how anyone catches them. You
Preach,
catch them.
preach,
You
preach.
I'm in the
catch them on
same
a
boat.
hot dog.
Yeah.
You catch them on a
Right.
hot dog. I could care less. You can catch 500 more fish than I do in a day. I could care less as long as you're not killing them. If you're killing
Yeah.
them, I will not like you.
It feels like almost like, in baseball, they talk about like the unwritten rules of the sport.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no way that, I mean, I guess again, totally novice. I don't think there's really a way that there's going to be an appropriate way to regulate technology in musky fishing from what we have right now. Like, maybe if things continue to progress, there'll be regulations that get put on it. But like with the technology we have right now, it would be really hard to enforce. Like,
No, they can't
uh,
afford it.
you can't enforce it,
Right.
right? So
Like
like there's almost like an unwritten rules of musky fishing, like a code of ethics that, could just get like published somehow. Like, hey, this is like
Like
the unwritten
Muskie's
rules of
Inc.
musky
or
fishing.
something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, they kind of
They
punted
won't.
on it, but
so,
That's
let
right.
me ask you a question on
That's
on
right.
that topic real quick, because
okay.
since you guys fished the PMGT,
Mm-hmm.
so PMGT live scopes banned, whatever, live sonar, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there can be a transducer on your boat, correct?
It's I I don't know. You're not allowed to use it, and I know we've seen some things and heard of
Well,
some
see
people that have
where,
seen people still scope during tournaments and
yeah. So where he
never got
just
the
said,
evidence, but
yeah. Well, we all know it happens. It's going to happen, you know.
right.
Like he said, you can't regulate it. Well, right there's a good example, and I I think PMT is cool as hell. I'd love to do that, but I'm not going to do it if live scope's banned, and then you can still have a live scope transition in your boat because I'm not donating money on the honor system. And I don't know if it's happening. I have no idea. I ain't fished PMT in years, and I don't really talk to anybody that's doing it. I don't know, but I just don't. I think that's what made me think of that is like him saying regulate it. So we'll just say DNR bans live scope on Leech Lake for muskies. Okay, how in the hell are they going to enforce that? I could have a bass draw on my boat and I'm like, oh, I'm scoping smallmouth right now. Then dude pulls off. I take a musky rod and throw it over there when no one's looking, you know. But what it will do is it will deter the majority of fishermen from doing it. That's the good thing. There's always going to be someone breaking the law, obviously. Um, but I don't even know why I went to there, but that's why I have a hard time fishing a PMGT. I've had a lot of people ask me, why don't you fish PMGT? Hey, you want to fish PMT with me? I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to donate my money. And it's probably not nearly as bad as what I'm making it sound. I have no idea.
I'll say this. The people that consistently, since we've been doing it, that place in the top 10, I'd feel pretty confident saying
they're not doing it.
They're not doing
right.
it. I mean, the name that you
know them, and
tournament in, tournament out. You're seeing a lot of the same names up there.
It's always the same guys. It's more of an excuse for me to not do them, I guess, now that I think about it. I don't have to travel and add more traveling to my life. I'm okay how I am right now.
Again, I'm probably too ignorant on this. I do feel like that doesn't happen there, but it is worrisome how little it is regulated. Like, I do think it's something that I wish they would crack down on more, because, like, for us, we have an ice fishing bundle for our live scope, right? So, like, we actually have to physically take the thing and put it into our boat if we ever want to use it and take it out or whatever. But it is a little bit weird when you see, like, in Gus, we're out of a tiller, smaller boat compared to 95% of the other boats in the field. It is a little weird when you see those, big jacked up Rangers with all this technology, and it's just like, I don't know what the hell is going on that thing. Like, I got no
an
clue.
all black 21-foot Ranger. You can't even tell if they have a pull down or not, honestly.
See, that's where it's weird. I mean, I like you said, it's probably not happening because the same guys are always winning it, but there's always that chance that it could. And if if you either need to allow it or you need to have zero transducers on your boat. That's just what I always felt about it. But we can move on to something else if you guys like.
I think it's a fair point. We all agree. We've talked about it before. I mean, it's
just so bizarre
before
to me.
It starts. Yeah.
It's just bizarre. There's that much money on the line, and it's just someone could be a liar and be like, "Oh no, I don't have no live scope on here," and blah blah blah.
I mean, we're not fishing small systems sometimes too. Like, when we were on Vermilion, not last year but the year prior, like, we ran into a handful of tournament boats the whole damn tournament. It's like you're not even seeing that many people out there.
Yeah. Well, it's like I'm not gonna imagine, like Leech, they had that Bassmaster Open up there this year. And I mean, I'm from a southern reservoir. There are two bass tournaments a weekend on the place, and it's like you're driving down through downtown Chicago. So I'm thinking, God, this is gonna be horrible, because I had a guide during that Open, and I'm like, this is gonna suck. I get out there, I didn't have a problem at all. I mean, I've seen bass boats, but there was no issue whatsoever. And there's who knows how many bass boats are in those tournaments? I don't even know, 200 to 400. I don't even know.
Crazy.
I mean, you can't park anywhere. There's nowhere to put in, but a lake that big just swallows people up. You never see anybody. It's crazy.
Well, I think you'd have a lot of fun fishing the PMTT. I do think you should give it a go. Have you fished in events in the past, or? Yeah,
I fished one time at Cave Run. I think we got 7th or something. I don't really remember what it was. It was the year Scott Salchi and Pork Chop won. They won with like 4 or 5 fish or something.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the only time I ever fished it. I think that was 2021. Yeah, that was the same year. Yeah, so I went down there, did that, came up, cut the state record the next week, I believe. So yeah, 2021 was the last time I fished it.
Wow, nice. And you've done a few other tournaments. I feel like I remember seeing there was one where you won and you had like a goofy outfitter hat or something like that, if I remember correctly. I don't know if you want to state more on that or give some more clues as to what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, the figure 8 tournaments is what those are. So ever since figure 8 tournaments came out, I fished them. Last 2-3 years, there's some show, like the Minnesota shows on the weekend of it, which I think he moved it this year, but I won't be able to do it anyways. So typically back then I'd fish every single tournament that he had, and I fished the majority of them. I've only won one time. I've came in top 10 a couple times, but I've only won one time. And the whole live scope thing was brought up in that, and basically what happened is there was a guy that did it, and people got mad, kind of quit fishing the tournament. Well, then Brandon Lilly is the one that runs the figure eight tournament, and owns figure eight musky gear. And Brandon's telling me on the phone, he's like, dude, he said, I've literally had guys today text me and tell me that they're not fishing it because they can't beat you. And I said, are the guys dumb or what? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just tell them, show them that I have only won one of these tournaments out of like 7 or 8 of them. Like, I've only won one. Why would you say you can't beat me when I've only ever won one? And random people have won all the others, you know? So it cracked me up. So I kind of made it a joke. Like I don't know what it was. Me and my buddy were being dumb. And I think what actually started it was I bought that 620 tiller and no one knew my boat on Stonewall at that time, you know, because I had a new boat. I didn't post it. I didn't want anyone to know what my boat looked like because I had guys following me around and stuff. So I get there and I told my buddy, I said, go to the Halloween store because this is an October tournament, first week in October. I said, go to the Halloween store and get us some kind of costume that we can wear out there so no one will recognize us. What I really wanted him to get was an Amish costume. Sorry if I'm offending any Amish viewers right now, but I wanted an Amish.
You're safe.
I wanted an Amish costume to wear out there in a 620 Ranger in West Virginia because that's like never been had before. You know, I thought that would have been hilarious.
Yeah, you safe.
So what he ends up showing up to my house with the night before tournament was these black curly afros about this big, kind of like what Scooby Doo wore or Scooby was wearing on Scooby Doo.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he brings those things, and I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So we go out pre-fishing the tournament, and there's dudes. I'm sure you've heard the term rubbernecking, where they're looking at you drive by, right? I had guys staring at me for a mile because there's just 2 dudes in a 620 Ranger with Minnesota tags on it, with black afros just blowing in the wind down the lake. It was awesome. No one had any idea who we were. And then the tournament comes, and I'm like, well, we got to keep them on. So we kept them on for the tournament. Well, we caught fish in the tournament. So now there's a picture of me holding a fish in the tournament with that afro. So then I thought, well, we just need to make a tradition out of this. So we started doing, I think I got like a 6-foot sombrero one time, and I used it. And then the next time, the next tournament that we did, we forgot to get new costumes. So we found them afros. Well, I told Cody, my buddy, I'm like, stick it on your head. I'll trim it up with a pair of scissors. So he sticks it on his head. And this is a good learning point if anyone's ever going to do this. Don't put it on the head and trim it. Trim it while it's off the head. Well, I stuck it on his head and started trimming it. Well, I cut through the freaking wig with a pair of scissors and actually cut his hair.
Oh, no.
But what we did there is we made it looked like Mickey Mouse. And I think I went right down the middle, shaved off the middle, and then had 2 clumps over here. Oh, we just try to have fun. You know, we got to thinking that people were saying that, and people just need to have fun in a tournament. Like anybody can win a muskie tournament. I mean, there's one guy that won one year. He had never muskie fished before, and he had never muskie fished a lake. His partner had never muskie fished before, and he had never fished a lake, and he had never fished in West Virginia. And he came up to West Virginia, and he blew the whole tournament out. So like it doesn't matter. Like anyone could win it. My grandma could win a tournament with PMTT. It just depends on what she does, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So we were just trying to make a joke out of it. Guys, it's not this big a deal. Just put your money in. If you catch fish, you catch fish. If you don't, you don't. You know?
Right.
Yeah. That's so funny.
That'd be fun to do. We've joked in
Yeah.
the past when we've done like the 3 in a boat tournament, the national championship, about getting like some, you know, team apparel or something, but never have. But it would be funny to get something foolish.
Get some costumes.
Brad was telling me, you know, the Dumb and Dumber tuxedos.
Yeah.
Brad was telling me one of his buddies did the PMTT wearing those one year.
That's pretty awesome.
Can't remember who it was, but
I'd
love to see
Jealous
that.
of that.
So
That's
good.
sick.
Yeah.
Just gotta have fun with it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
All right, you boys got any other questions for Chase? I feel like we probably skipped over a million different things we could ask him, but hopefully he'll grace us with his presence again down the road, and we can get into some more stuff. I was really happy you let a little cat out of the bag there on some Southern Reservoir stuff. Like I said, I took some notes. I feel equipped. I'm ready for cave this year. I'm excited to get back down there. I think maybe.
I will tell you
Think.
this. I will tell you this. Like I said, the Bill Normans are hard to get, but there's a dude. I haven't used them, but I'd like to get a couple of them. There's a guy on Facebook. I think his name's like Tim Gilbert, something like that.
Mhm.
He's starting to make. It's basically a Bill Norman. I don't know if they're any good or not, but they look identical to a Bill Norman. So if you can't find Bill Normans, look at those. I don't have any yet, but
Sounds like buying pot back in like 2010.
yeah.
It's like I know a guy. I know
Name
a
Tim
guy who
Gilbert.
knows a guy.
I don't know if it's legit, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Could be sketchy. You don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. No, I don't know if I have much to add right now, man. We talked in good detail about a lot of great topics. I had an absolute blast. Chase, we'll have to get you back on. I'm looking forward to seeing you at Chicago show. Before we sign off, if you want to give away your socials and whatnot, and then any other shows that you're going to be at.
Yeah, I'll be at Chicago show, Milwaukee, and PA. Those are the three shows I'm doing this year. Look to see everybody there. I'll either be in the Musky Bumper, Musky Mayhem, or Team Rhino booth, one of the three. If I ain't there, I'm at the bar and the bathroom. So just give me a minute and come back to those three booths. My social media wise on Facebook, it's just Chase Gibson or Gibson's Guide Service. I tend to use the just Chase Gibson more often than Gibson's Guide Service. Same thing with Instagram. Chase Gibson Fishing is my personal page. Gibson's Guide Service is my business page. If you don't know yet, we've talked about a little bit on this. I have a TV show, co-host of a TV show. It's on YouTube. It's called Mayhem's 10,000 Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you go over there and hit that subscribe button. So it makes it worth us doing it. But like I was telling you, I've got a house payment now and everything, so we're not making crap off YouTube. I'm sure you guys aren't either. So,
Right.
Oh, we definitely aren't making any money off
No.
YouTube, seeing as we have zero videos that have ever come out.
yeah. So, well, we
Correct.
got plenty of videos out, and it's the same thing. So don't get your hopes up. And then it's on KOTV on any Roku device. So KOTV network on any Roku device.
Yeah, right on. Well, yeah, can't thank you enough. Looking forward. I unfortunately won't catch you at any shows, but it would be fun to catch you on the road someday, whether it's in Minnesota or whatnot. I'm hoping to do some more exploratory missions here in Minnesota. I've just been so stranglehold by Wisconsin my entire life, and I've just started to branch into the Minnesota stuff. So we'll see where that leads me here this
Might never
summer,
see
but-
Max again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Off the
Probably
deep end.
not.
I don't know.
If you get up near Leech area, give me a call.
Yeah, I'd love to hop in, even if it's just for another 6.5 hour day of mapping. You let me know. I'm up for whatever. Any day in
Yeah.
the boat's a good day for me. So
Well, I got outlets in the driveway for the boat too.
yeah, and I can drink. So I mean, whatever. It's
Well, I try to. I'm not gonna say I can. I try to. But
yeah, it's all practice. It's all it is.
For sure.
yeah. Well, thanks
Well-
guys for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thanks, Chase.
Excited
Thanks
to
for
check out
coming
that
on.
Wisconsin episode this week.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm excited about it too.
Right on.
Cool.
Hell
Everybody
yeah.
go watch
Can't
that.
wait.
Awesome.
What's that?
Just telling
There's-
everybody what to do. Get over there and watch the video this week.
Oh, yeah. Hey, get over it.
Get over
Oh
here.
yeah.
All right. See you guys.
All right, right
Good,
on.
Chase.
See ya.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we can't thank Chase enough for giving up his time tonight and chatting muskies. We just had a fantastic chat with him. Hopefully everybody out there enjoyed it as much as we did. And I don't know, let's see what we got on the docket here tonight to chat over. One thing I've said on socials and maybe once or twice on the podcast, I will be heading down to Chicago show. I'm not working a booth or speaking in or anything, but I'm just going to be walking around, picking up some lures, hanging out at maybe a couple booths, seeing some people that I haven't seen in a while. So if you spot me, say what up. I'll be wearing, Muskies on Tap gear. I'll be kind of lugging around a little bit of some gear as well. Unfortunately, since I didn't know I was going to Chicago until as of late, don't have the merch in yet, but
Damn.
everything is ordered. Um, and for
No, no
sure
way that
we'll
happens if
have
Brian's still running the show.
Nah.
right,
Right.
right. But we got two different colors of t-shirts coming out. We got two more hoodies, well, actually three, but two colors. Just one of them that's the same color. It's two different designs, one with the newer one, and then one. We are gonna have a couple, original logoed Muskies on Tap hoodies. Not very many. That's gonna be in small quantity, but and we'll see how those go through this show season. Probably going to start with only leaving it to anybody that shows up at the shows to purchase them. The main set that we're going to be doing is in the Wisconsin Muskie Expo where we will have a booth, being a booth, and then also the Waters Meet show in end of March, which when it gets closer to, I'll give more details. That's a one-day event on a Saturday. I want to say it's like March 29th. If that's not a Saturday, it's whatever Saturday is a day or two around that. That's just kind of all I remember for that. So that's kind of the update on the merchandise. Also getting a couple new pint glasses with the new alternate logo as we described it. Stickers too for the alternate logo. So I'll look for those. Coming out here shortly. I once we get them in, like I see them, then we're gonna be posting pictures and hyping them up and whatnot. But now we're just kind of getting the ball rolling and letting people know that merch is arriving.
Soon.
Yes, very soon. So
Cool new colors too. Really
yeah,
went out on a limb with these.
we're really excited.
A little bit of
So
a creme brulee, cookies and cream color for y'all. Kind of like a
Mm.
kind of like a blood orange, like burgundy, a little like faded out sun tint to it, rustic color.
it's like a brick
Y'all are gonna love
rust color
these.
kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cool. It's pretty sweet.
Hmm.
Y'all like it. We got what is it? Comfort colors
Comfort
t-shirts,
colors. Yep.
which are personally my favorite t-shirt. Kind
Hmm.
of like a
Sort of a loose fit, not not that we all need to show off the figure. Fits nicely,
mhm,
professional yet casual.
great material. I love the thickness of it. Just,
Yep.
perfect t-shirts.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Enough said.
You know what's not cool?
Uh-oh.
What? Oh,
We gonna address the
the
elephant?
pack.
No
The
more Packers
pack.
football the rest of the year.
No more Packers football.
Damn.
And you know what? I'm honestly glad that we're recording this on Tuesday night because I can take solace in one fact is we have a lot of Minnesota listeners.
Yep.
And as bad as that Packer game was, I mean, I'm talking, I didn't smile
Nothing
for
went right.
3.5 hours. The whole
Mm-mm-mm.
team gets injured. We're already down our number one wide receiver, number one cornerback.
Yeah.
Got a lot of issues going on. So it was never going to be our year. It's never going to be our year. We had a little bit
Hmm.
of false hope, I think, going to the playoffs, as we always do as Packers fans. We expect,
Gotta have hope in your team.
hey, you got to have hope in your team. You expect Pack to win a few games, probably lose the NFC Championship, whatever. But
Yeah.
but expectations, I would say, were pretty tapered, I would say, compared to normal years.
Hmm.
Unlike our friends here in the state that I live in, I should say, who, after going 14-3, barely missing out on the one
Mhm.
seed, game away from having home field and a bye,
Hmm.
go
I mean,
to
those.
go to an away playoff game that they had to move
Uh,
the stadium at.
uh-huh.
It's
Nooch
filled with
site.
Minnesota fans. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking, you would have thought that that was just a neutral site bowl game that only Minnesota fans travel to.
Hmm.
Just to lay that kind of an egg.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
tough to see, man. You just hate to see something like that.
It did feel good. The
It
Vikings
felt,
fans
yeah,
thought it was their year. Like all of a sudden they all loved Sam Darney out of nowhere and they had faith in him. And
typical
just the
Vikings
bridge is
fan.
absolutely on fire. The bridge collapsed. Horrible showing. Now what? Now they're screwed. They get a horrible draft pick. What do you get rid of Sam Darnold, play this unproven, very underwhelming JJ McCarthy coming
He's
off
good
an
at handing the ball
injury?
off. As he
He's good at handing the
proved at
ball off.
Michigan, handed the
Yeah.
ball off a lot. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, draft a good running back, I guess, and play that game. I don't know. I just see a dark future ahead for Vikings fans. Not much different than the past for them. So good luck.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I think we all could have seen this from a mile away coming. You just knew that they're just gonna drop out first round.
Yeah.
People might be saying that we're haters, but I mean, I had high hopes for the Vikings too. I was telling everybody I thought
I'm
they were going to
unbiased.
roll. Yeah, we're unbiased. We're
I'm
unbiased. We're
looking at
not
what's in front of
petty.
me. I'm looking at the
Right.
facts.
Right.
Sure,
And
you
I
might have a
thought they
great
were,
coach. You might have a great coach. I'll give you that, but he can only do so much.
yeah. And I mean, you'd think a great coach would, be able to score more than 9 points against the
Yeah.
Rams team that, was pretty middle of the pack, but
Yeah.
good coach for sure.
Yeah. We'll see. He's got an even better coach. So the Ohio State Buckeyes moving on to the national championship, guys, playing Monday night against the Catholics. Notre Dame about to get that BTA once again. 10-point favorites, I believe.
Should
I
be
had
a
a little,
cakewalk.
yeah, it should be. I was worried about the whole, like, you're on cloud nine, you feel untouchable, and then the underdog kind of bites in the ass against Texas. I don't feel the way about this one. I think any team will get up for the national championship.
Mhm.
So I'm fairly comfortable going into the game. I'm sure pre-kickoff I'll be a little jittery, but excited for it. Been a long time
Yeah.
coming.
I was gonna say you gotta be pretty jacked up for that one. I mean, good
It sucks it's on a
opportunity.
Monday. I think that's so foolish. Put it on a Saturday like every other college game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But NFL, oh
Hmm.
God, don't even get me started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's January when we have this much football talk. Gus just sitting there looking at us like, all right, time to wrap this up.
Yeah, you can talk as long as you want. I don't care.
No, I to be
Great
real,
stuff for the outro.
I was bummed watching that Packers game. I thought that they would put up a little bit more of
Hmm.
a fight, but honestly, I think more people I talk to that are Packers fans, I think you can agree on this that if you ended up squeaking out that game somehow, not that we really ever had a chance, like what are you doing in the next round? Down your top three wide receivers. Those
Yeah,
guys are
that's
going to play
true.
the next week.
Yeah,
Down your left tackle, your best offensive
in
lineman,
Detroit.
no
Yeah,
chance. So
no.
got a good young core. You
Youngest
see,
team in the
apparently
league.
they're going to be able to spend some money. So I mean, our two best players this year were free agent pickups with Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. So hopefully
Yeah.
they learn a good lesson from that and they go out and spend some dough this offseason and see a
First time
good.
ever. Well, I guess no. Sorry, it would be the second time ever after last offseason, but I don't know. I never have faith in them making big moves, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, Gus, have fun in Chicago this weekend. Let us know if you score any new baits. You got your eyes on anything?
I do. So with this show, since I'm just gonna be walking around and not, foot in place, I figured this is probably the good one where I'm gonna make my typical musky innovations, chaos, and Team Rhino purchases that are pretty typical to every year, where I pretty much just pick up the tried and true baits, and then with the leading expos, towards the end of the year is when I would do a little bit more digging, trying some new stuff, one or two of a one-off bait I don't usually throw, or maybe one that, took me by surprise this past season, and I'll get, and I only had one of them, and they're already hard to get except for show season, and I'm gonna get some more. So. Otherwise, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward at Chicago.
Yeah.
Nothing great. But I haven't even looked at the booth lists. I mean, if anybody's got some suggestions, this comes out 2 day or a day before the show starts. Let me know if there's something I shouldn't miss out on. I mean, I saw a little bit of the list. I'm gonna go see who I can, talk to in a day's time.
Well, feel free to lob us a FaceTime. Check it out. One thing, real quick, before we sign off, that I do want to talk about, and we can maybe move it to next week because it's getting pretty long here. But we totally glossed over that the PMTT did come out with their schedule for next year. I know we talked a lot
All
about the
right.
PMTT a little bit here in this interview, but we never touched on it. Never touched on it. Never talked about it.
Right, right.
So We got Cave Run in April. We got
Yeah.
Eagle River Three Lakes in June.
Damn.
We got
Brian's
Cass.
excited.
We got
Someone be his
Cass
partner.
Bemidji in August, and we got Clear Lake in Iowa, end of September. So
Wow. Okay. Mix it up a
Iowa.
little bit.
Yeah,
some different
Iowa.
stops. I didn't think that they'd be going back to Eagle River at the end of June. I think they pushed that one a little bit later. So hopefully by then we'll be kind of through that post turnover June rut that we always kind of get up there, and the bite will be good. And then I've heard Cass Bemidji can be tough, so we'll see how that goes. But Clear Lake, I honestly I know very minimal about that. So looking
That's the
forward to
champ?
exploring a new
Yes,
body of water.
championship.
Granted, we
Yeah.
are able to make it there. Fingers crossed that we can get there this year. Um, and yeah, should be another fun season. What are
I
your
would
thoughts?
say like I'm gonna be on the partner search for that second leg, but I just don't want to like bump y'all out of the top 10 if y'all need the points for the year-long race. So I don't know.
That's great.
I mean, I think you got to have your eye on that one as a one-off to do. I mean, I got to think you'll be linking up with somebody to enter into that one.
Just
When
one.
is it? Like last weekend of
Because
June?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. Because if you do it and you do well with whoever you partner up with, then sign up
You're into the
for
ship.
Cass and then you're in the ship.
Got a
Yeah.
chance to fish for 50 G's, man. I mean,
Or a
Damn.
new rig, dog. You need yourself a
ain't,
rig.
That's
ain't,
true.
I
ain't
don't
the
know
end
where
of the
you're gonna be
world.
putting it, but
It's
you
a
need
good
yourself
point.
a
It's a good
rig.
point.
So I don't know if there's some people out there looking to fish in two events potentially. If you Brian would be a
Yeah.
good Brian wouldn't be a bad partner to link up with the Eagle River Three Lakes one. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
He knows a
I have some
lot
tricks up
more
my
than
sleeve.
most people that don't fish there.
If you want to fish not with Gus but have all of Gus's waypoints, Brian's a good person to fish with.
Basically.
Uh,
That's
Good
too
stuff.
funny. Oh man. I think that will
The
wrap up
inbox
this
is gonna
week.
just be flooded now. All
Right,
right,
yeah.
let's go.
No,
what
I
you know,
think I
what you
think
know.
we will maybe talk a little bit more about the PMTT when it comes closer. But yeah, we
For
totally
sure.
forgot to, get the schedule out there. But very excited for that. Can't wait to see all the people we've met over the years in that event. And honestly, probably we'll see a good amount of those people at the shows as well. So really looking forward to that. And before Brian signs us off here, be sure to check out Muskies on Tap on Facebook and Instagram. Give us a follow, like, and whatnot. Also, my guide service, Suggs Fishing Guide Service on Facebook and Instagram. Shoot that a follow. I'll be getting out new posts and whatnot. And the other thing that we are chopping up, when we're joking around with the YouTube thing, actually the first bit of content I do want to put out is going to be PMTT based, since I think, out of our year for like, before we go to the tournament and then the wrap up podcast, that accounts for a lot of podcasts and information and content that we've done. So I feel like it's something that, people can hopefully enjoy and watch. What's been going on with us in the PMTT. So I'll be excited to put that out. I'm not sure how they'll be formatted. I think it's going to be more long um time frame, long formats, longer videos. Not so much on any of this insane editing that, like our friend Kyle can get done in time for, his Eagle Lake trips, what he's done with the musky battle, what he's been doing with hunting videos too, ice fishing and whatnot. So, I'm not trying to put up anything of that caliber, but something maybe that people can one enjoy watching and then two learn from, I don't want it to just be musky catches, so have some sort of educational aspect to it just to throw on in the background that night you get home in the winter or whatever. So we'll see. We'll see how
Good
long that first one takes. Cave run
luck.
first. Thanks.
All right,
Oh,
everybody. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Buskies on Tap. Shout out to Chase Gibson for coming on tonight. Absolute southern beauty of a feller. Hell of a fisherman. Would love to have him on again to hear more of his stories. Well-traveled guy. Make sure to hit him up. Check out his Instagram. Check out their YouTube channel. But anyways, with the outro, I don't know where a whole lot to go. We already hit on our sports takes for the evening. I'm just gonna ask for one thing here, guys. You guys can join in here with me. Monday night, Buckeyes, OH.
IO.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Peace, peace, peace.
Peace, peace, peace.